Okay, new business, the ever entertaining audit report.
Well, the audit's not entertaining, so the presentation has to.
Mr. Graves is entertaining.
Good evening to everyone. Before we get started, I would like to recognize my daughter Lindsay over there. She's a lead auditor on your school. They didn't even let me come down here this year in the summer. She's got this thing under control so well, but she wanted to be here tonight, certainly for Vicky's reception, and accompany me down here to help watch for deer and things like that tonight. We had a meeting earlier in the afternoon with the Finance Committee and covered, quite a bit of issues that I won't get into as much detail for you here tonight. But if you'll look at the first 3 pages of the audit report, and this is the only part of this report that is Gray's, just our opinion. The rest of it is yours. And on the second page, we issue an opinion, an unmodified opinion, and that's what you want to hear us come back and report to you, that nothing came to our attention, either situationally or departures from accounting principles, that would warrant a modification. Okay, if you'll jump with me to page 21, make a few observations on the financial statements themselves. For the second year in a row, the district had, for the year, the district had a 4% increase in revenue, which that's a pretty healthy increase that we've seen this year. Most everybody's been around 2% in the districts we work with. So y'all are out ahead of the game on that. And the prior year, like I say, you're 4% this year, 2% this year, the year before. You've already seen your new assessed valuation numbers, and we'll talk about that a little bit further back. But at the same time, with that 4% increase, and you kind of adjust the numbers around a little bit for the capital projects that you had going on, it looks like you had about a 6% increase in spending for the year. And the year before, you were down 3%. So you've had a 2-year increase of 6% in revenue and a 2-year increase in spending of only about 3%. So that helps you build up on your fund balances down there. But for the year, you had a net, again, when you pull out the capital improvements that you made, looked like around the neighborhood of $250,000 increase in the bottom line. The year before, it was about $1,250,000. So again, watch your spending there and keep an eye on that balance. Again, when we take that average monthly spending, you're sitting there with about 6.5 months of reserves, down slightly from the year before, when you're at 7 months of reserves. And again, we encourage you, based on DESI guidelines, to try to maintain between 4 and 6 months worth of reserves. And so you're right there on the upper end of that number for sure. And again, sometimes the constituents want to know why the district's holding on to all that money and what have you. But again, a government has to have sufficient reserves to take advantage of opportunities when they come along. And again, one word that I keep throwing out there that everybody understands, really 2 words with in there, and that's Joplin, Missouri. And that could be anybody in this day and age, and so it doesn't hurt to have some reserves should something, God forbid, catastrophically come along that challenges. Then on page 24, I comment, as I always do, on the proprietary fund. This is your self-insurance fund. And again, for those who aren't familiar with what this really is, this is where the district set up this fund years back to try to help control the never-ending challenge of health care costs. And so you wound up the year with $2,600,000 in that. So collectively, since the district took advantage of setting this up, that's how much net savings essentially that the district has been able to garner helping manage the health insurance cost. And again, based on your average benefit payments this year, you have about 7.9 months of reserves in there, down from 9.9 months the year before. So again, for your constituents, $2.6 million has been saved over the life of this thing at this point in time and healthcare cost. Then we'll jump to the footnotes to the financial statements, and footnotes are going to have all of the required disclosures that accounting standards makers require us to have in an audit report. And if you'll jump to page 36, the first significant one, and that's dealing with the state statute that requires the district to keep their deposits either FDIC insured or covered through pledged collateral, and that's part of the field test that we're doing with confirmations and working with the various financial institutions you deal with, and we found the district to be in compliance with that requirement. And if you'll keep on going on the footnotes, all the way back to, well, put those tabs on there, all the way back to page 44, and dealing with the property taxes, again, for two consecutive years, the district has had a 2% increase in assessed valuation. And that 2%, this audit cycle is pretty consistent with what we've seen with most of our districts. We had one over at Bell the other night that for some reason it had a 5% increase. But about 2%, 2 to 3% is what we're seeing. And of course, y'all had already seen those numbers to start with. So 2 years in a row of 2%. As we say in the last paragraph of that footnote, you collected 97% of the maximum possible taxes for the year. And year in and year out, based on historical data, we expect that percentage collected to be in the 96 to 99% collected. The year before, you're at 99%. So you're right where you need to be. And again, we know a lot about a district before we ever show up in the summertime through some of this analytical review that we're being able to do back at the office. So if that number was to drop below 96%, we're going to hit the door asking a lot of questions about what's going on in the district. But it's indicative that your constituents are staying employed and being able to keep their taxes paid up. Every once in a while, we'll see that drop down below there. And some years back up at Kirksville, they had a plant close up there and had a lot of people move away, and then they moved without paying their personal property taxes and things of that nature. So, you know, sometimes those things just happen that you can't control. Okay, if you'll jump on back to page 71 and 72, this is the budget to actual comparison. And again, we as auditors have to review your budgeting procedures and present these two schedules. And the most important thing to you, again, we found you to be in compliance with budgetary chapter 67 with your budgeting procedures. And then moving to page 78, the schedule of federal expenditures. You spent about $3.8 million of federal funds for the year. And again, based on federal guidelines, we have to select certain of those programs and test them for both your internal control and compliance with the federal guidelines in handling those funds. And then once we do that, we issue the subsequent two reports, the next 4 pages. And most importantly to you, we found you do, as always, you do a real fine job in the handling of federal funds. The only item in there is a repeat, and it has to stay in there now, as I've told you before, under present reporting standards, and that's a segregation of duties issue that virtually everyone has. You just simply have limited administrative accounting staff. And as I tell people that in accounting classes, when you start that way early in your career, they talk to you a lot about internal control. But as you move along, there's not a lot of technical guidance on internal control. And so you kind of have to look to more academic writings and professional standards. And I read a report some years ago that I think I've shared with you that that ideology was it took 6 to 8 people involved in a transaction to achieve maximum segregation of duties. And so you implement mitigating procedures to help in that area, but for the most part, for everyone, it's very difficult to to hit that standard. That's the body, oh, whoops, one last section here, lost my tab off of it. If you'll jump to page 86. And again, as you know, you're charged with record keeping and reporting to DESE for attendance and transportation and free and reduced price lunches. And we have to examine your records in those areas and issue an opinion on our examination. And again, we're issuing an unmodified opinion. Nothing came to our attention in your record keeping there in that area that was problematic. So there's several opinions being issued in this audit report. That's the body of the audit report itself. You have additional reportable called the communication of audit results. Further back. Okay, you don't have that one? It's there somewhere. Again, the communication of audit results is an executive summary of the audit process. It's been updated now for about 10 years, that if things or a thing had come to our attention or been problematic in performing the audit, you'd have known about it a long time before tonight, but certainly there were none. But if there was any such a situation, it would be being reported to you in this communication. So it hits a number of the bullet points of the overall audit process in that communication. And the last item is the management letter. Again, the only thing in there is a repeat of the segregation of duties issue that I've already discussed with you. So that's your 2016-17 audit report. As I told you through the years, and now Lindsay's gotten, I think this is her 11th time to get to work with Vicki in auditing down here, and I go back a little further than that, don't I, Vicki? But I go back to Leonard in those days. But again, this is an audit that staff likes to be on. Y'all have done a wonderful job here, Vicki has, through the years in passing the torch to Kendra. So we're anticipating great things to continue there. But again, it's a real fine district, and y'all are on top shelf from an accounting financial standpoint from our experience with you. And so we certainly hate to see her go, but wish her the best, and Godspeed.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
Just a comment here, Vicki be the first to defer, any credit for this, but her leadership, you heard Lynn talk of that, and we've certainly been able to enjoy that for 16 years. And also the staff that cooperates with Kendra and Vicki to put this together so that your job is easy. It's not just the work of the two of them, as they would certainly say, but it's indicative of a district that has high standards for accountability for the tax money that people entrust us. So it's good to hear that.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to accept the audit with appreciation of Vicki and Kendra.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Since this is Vicki's last audit and last board meeting, we could have her step to the microphone, but I don't. I'm just kidding.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion to accept the audit, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.